Welcome into the Sportsmemo betting podcast for Tuesday, February 5th, college basketball edition with our college basketball expert, Rob Veno. Rob, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I am doing great today, Drew. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, Robbie. It's warming up there in the Northeast. I think you're right around the Philadelphia area, so that's good for you as far as weather-wise. You're also warming up on the college basketball betting markets. 4 and 5% plays, 23 and 12 run. That's 66% over the last 24 days, so hats off to you. You got a 4% up at sportsmemo.com. Recommend everybody check that out. It is $2 Tuesday. Top play on the board from Teddy Covers, discounted to just $2, and it's a 5% play, guys. Normally $30, comes with the 150% guarantee. It's 5% big ticket in college basketball for just $2 on sportsmemo.com. You can also pick up Robbie's top play. Brent Crow's got a 5% up there as well. So a lot on the college basketball betting front. But Robbie, you've been good in college basketball. Anything you want to say here to the listeners before we start breaking down the games?
You know what? We're into the what I would consider the heart of college basketball season now, Drew, just from the fact that more people start to pay attention at this point in time. Obviously, we as handicappers and bettors have been here since November with college basketball, but for the people that might be tuning in now, we always look to shed a little bit of light on more ways to cash tickets for you. Hopefully what we present here for info will help you do that. And for myself, like I say, it's been a real good run as a volume player to put up the types of numbers, winning numbers that I've had so far this season. To me, it's always an indicator that the year's been good, Drew, and it certainly has at this point. We look forward to what's down the road here, the rest of February into March, and conference tournament time and then postseason tournament time. So got a full focus on college basketball right now, along with NBA and what will be a startup football league coming this Sunday.
Yeah, American Allegiance of Football, or of America. What's it called, Robbie? It's either the Alliance of American Football or the American Alliance of Football. I don't know which word comes first, American or Alliance. I would assume American comes first. So, or maybe Alliance. That's what they're touting here, unity. It's kind of the easiest way to explain it, Drew, put in Bill Polian's words, the commissioner of this league, the head organizer of this league, is they're just trying to give a lot of players second chances to get back into the NFL. It's almost a funnel, a minor leagues of sorts, AAA system of sorts to get guys that have either been in the NFL for a cup of coffee and didn't make a roster this season, or college kids that are looking for that first opportunity to get into the NFL. So it should be good. A lot of big names inside that league, and I'm sure as time goes on here with podcasts, we'll get into that a little deeper. Yeah, that will be some fun ones. I know Michael Vick's a name, Steve Spurrier, so it will be fun to watch, and there are reports that the sportsbooks will be putting out lines, so stay tuned to sportsmemo.com for more information on the new football league there. We do have college basketball tonight, a good slate. Tuesday night seems to be a packed house for college basketball, makes it a great betting night. We got 603, 604 towards the top of the card, Robbie. We'll start off here in the Big Ten. Michigan State, Illinois, seeing 147.5 as the total, and pretty much 10.5. There are some 10s out there. That's the Spartans laying on the road, Robbie.
Yeah, and they're in a must-win situation here, Drew. I don't think that they're in full panic mode, but look up and you see that Michigan State's lost a couple of games in a row after going on a lengthy win streak and opening up a lot of eyes to where people were considering Michigan State as a potential Final Four team. I'm not sure that those opinions have diminished any. They shouldn't off of 2 losses. But, a couple of Sundays ago, they went to Purdue and played Purdue and pretty much got it handed to them, 73-63, the final score, a little closer than the actual game itself. Michigan State went on a tremendous second-half run to close the gap in that game, and then Purdue separated a little at the end. But to bounce back at home against Indiana, a team that was struggling mightily, a young basketball team for Archie Miller that hadn't played well during Big Ten conference season, and lose straight up on your home floor, 79-75. I think for Michigan State, the alarms go off here. This is a road contest. Road inside the Big 12 never easy, inside the Big 10 never easy, but this is Illinois, a place where you would figure Michigan State is a 10-point favorite, could get a win. Illinois' defense on the season has not been good. I think they're allowing over 46% field goals. Our handicap here, we have to take the idea that Tom Izzo will have his team pretty fired up here. I don't think that there'll be any let up in this team at the end of games. You're always worried when you lay 10 of maybe a backdoor cover or something, especially with a Brad Underwood team. And Illinois has had their moments this season, a couple of them. But I don't know that they're prepared for this Michigan State club in the mood that they're going to be in tonight. Power ratings made them 10. The line has opened 10 and stayed 10, so not much movement either way. But I think the situationals here, Drew, probably indicate a play on Michigan State, or else just stay away.
Robbie, we got a 6-2-3, 6-2-4 here. St. John's, Marquette, two teams I haven't been involved with at all this season, I don't think. So interested to get your opinion on how you're looking to bet it. High total here, mid-150s, 154.5 the total, 6.5 Marquette laying at home.
Yeah, Big East as always, Drew. A very, very competitive conference. I think Villanova has made some separation. I think maybe Villanova and Marquette, power rating-wise at least, have made a little bit of separation from the rest of the pack. Nothing truly significant, but every time you get a Big East game, you have these offensive-minded teams where the game could go either way. Probably what we have here, but more than that, what we have in this one is a revenge game. St. John's absolutely blew Marquette out at St. John's first time around in their home game, 89-69. So you can expect Marquette to be in a pretty revenge-minded mood here in this contest. And for what it's worth, their top player, Marcus Howard, for Marquette, didn't have a real good game against St. John's. You get a nice matchup here. For those who don't know the Big East inside and out, or even surface-wise, Marcus Howard, one of the top scoring guards in the country. And for the other side, Shamari Pons for St. John's, ditto the same for him, an excellent scoring guard and the guy that St. John's leans on with Chris Mullen. It's a smallish team that likes to run. Both of these teams will push pace. St. John's a little more than Marquette. Interesting, Drew, when you look at overall numbers for these teams statistically, and you'd come away with the idea that, Marquette's a little bit better defensively than they've been in the past. And then in an article that I read, where their head coach, Steve Wojciechowski, was quoted as saying that Marquette's not as good a defensive team as they ought to be. So even the head coach has some doubts about the defense. He says his team is a little bit limited to what they can do. St. John's obviously putting 89 points on them the first time exposes some of that stuff. Whenever St. John's gets involved with a team that doesn't necessarily have an imposing front line, they're going to be competitive in that game. They had trouble with Georgetown because Georgetown's got that huge front line. But here, I think you probably see a lot of back and forth between these two. Don't know that Marquette will shy away from the pace. They can go with it. St. John's hasn't been they've been a pretty good defensive team, but because the tempo is so fast and there's so many possessions, they give up a lot of points. Looking at a number of 154.5 here, as well as a side of Marquette minus 6.5. If St. John's hadn't been blown out the way they were blown out in their last contest against Duke, where they shot the ball horribly. I think St. John's went 38% from the field, or 33% from the field, tribute to Duke's defense there. Had it not been for that game, would probably just hop on Marquette here, minus 6.5 for the revenge factor itself and, add home floor to that, and still could get there with Marquette. I think it'll be a high-scoring game and potentially Marquette to get their revenge against St. John's here.
Talking with Robbie Veno about tonight's college basketball card. Big Tuesday slate here. It's also $2 Tuesday at sportsmemo.com. Top play on the board, 5% big ticket from Teddy Covers, discounted to just $2. Robbie Veno's also got a bunch of plays on the college basketball card for tonight. And next game up, Robbie, we got 635, 636. Kansas State rivalry game of sorts, 134 the total. Kansas State the favorite here, Robbie. Beginning of the year, you might not have thought that, but they're laying 2.5 or 3. That's the Wildcats at home.
Yeah, and obviously for Kansas at the beginning of the year when you have your tremendous rim protector Uzubuike in the lineup. You don't think that K-State would be favored in this game, even though K-State was an Elite Eight team last year. But it's been 6 games now, I think, since KU lost their starting center, and they've had to acclimate to a new 4-guard offense, rather smallish. They need to shoot the ball well. We had their game against Texas Tech on our last podcast, and in that analysis, I had thought that Texas Tech, with the way they can play perimeter defense, would cause KU a lot of trouble. But Kansas, always capable, Drew, and it's always got to be in the back of your head when you handicap their games. They're always capable of shooting their way to victory. The guards are that good, Gerald Vick and company, where they can shoot their way to victory. But they'll have to do it again here tonight against Kansas State, because as good as Texas Tech is defensively, K-State is probably a notch. And let's put them on equal footing and not get totally carried away. My personal opinion after watching Kansas State this year is that they're a little bit ahead of Texas Tech defensively. But even if we put them on equal footing, that means Kansas has to come from a home game where they did shoot over a real good defense, scored a lot of points in that contest. They have to go on the road now to their in-state rival in this building, which will be absolutely on fire tonight, and do it all over again. Not so sure that they can. I don't think the money so far that we've seen is so sure that they can, because Kansas State has been bet up to what is a 3-point favorite right now. Total, a little bit head-scratching, Drew, the fact that it traveled so far from 128 all the way to 135, or 128.5 was the opener here, all the way to 135. Perhaps early bettors just thought 28.5 was too low of a number, and their numbers indicated something different. To get all the way to 135 means you need 68 per side here. And anybody who's seen Kansas State this year, 68 per side is an awful lot in their contests. In fact, at home this year, in their 10 games with totals on them, they're 9-1 under the total at home. So we've seen a little bit of take back now. Obviously, when you create a 7-point or a 6.5-point move like that, we see it every day in college basketball. There's going to be some take back the other way. We're seeing it start now. I think 34.5 was the number about an hour ago. Maybe some spots have gone to 34 right now. But it makes a little bit of sense that you would come back with a little bit of under money here. I, for one, happen to like the Kansas State team. Much more comfortable laying the opening number than the 3 here, but still wouldn't discourage people from laying 3 points in this game. I just think Barry Brown and company, and the fact that Kansas State has 2 big men where, KU is going to depend totally on Dedrick Lawson at 6'9", which they do most every night anyway. Lawson's an all-first-team Big 12 performer, been sensational so far this season. But Kansas State has the defensive weaponry to combat him, I think, here, and defend the perimeter. We'll see how it goes. I kind of like Kansas State in that game. Like I say, the early number was better. I still wouldn't discourage people from laying this number right now, currently -3.
Guys, Robbie Veno has a bunch of plays on tonight's card. What, Robbie, you got five plays all in college basketball tonight? Is that it?
Yeah, I think we have a 5-play card, yep. And like I said earlier, I just don't, from a betting perspective or a client recommendation perspective, just don't shy away from them when I see them. But it's shaped up as a nice card here, Drew. And as we've said, in kind of a tutorial sense for listeners, the back half of the season comes with some – the back half of the conference season comes with some intricacies, some different ways to play these games, different ways to look at them. Handicapping methods that work early don't always work toward the second half of conference season. You have to change it up a little bit. But we found some what I would call kind of weaknesses maybe, and I could be very wrong, but I saw them as weaknesses in some of the numbers here tonight. So we pounced. We went ahead and played them, and you can get them available at sportsmemo.com.
Yeah, there's 5 of them up at Robbie's homepage there at sportsmemo.com. Keep in mind it's $2 Tuesday. We're also doing a promo code for this podcast, ROBHALF. That's ROBHALF, exclusive to the podcast, and you can get any of Rob's plays for half off. You can get 1, 2, all 5, whatever you want, using the coupon code ROBHALF at checkout. You can get it for half off the posted price there at sportsmemo.com. Robbie, knowing his stuff, moving down the card here. We got 639, 640, Robbie, in the SEC. Florida at Auburn, 137.5 the total. Looks like Auburn opened 7. Those have been knocked out. Heck, most of the 7.5s have been knocked out now. They are at home. They look to be getting a little healthier, Robbie. They're now laying 8 on the Plains. How would you look to bet the Gators in War Eagles?
Yeah, and you want me to step back and let you analyze your Auburn War Eagles, Drew?
No. You go ahead, man. I'll chime in after.
The Auburn side has taken money, and I think there's a lot of interest where Auburn is concerned to see if they can get their big man Austin Wiley back even for a few minutes tonight. I was speaking with you off air here before we went on, and just a couple of things that I read this morning indicate he's back to practice, and it's possible he'll see some time tonight. But Bruce Pearl really emphasized the word cautious with Wiley. I think he knows that down the line it's going to be a very important piece to their team at 6'11". Auburn's so guard-oriented. Having a rim protector is huge for them, and he doesn't want to risk the chance that perhaps Wiley would get hurt again, re-injure, re-aggravate his current injury, which has cost him, I think, 4 or 5 games, the last 4 or 5 games. But we may see Wiley here a little bit tonight. If not, we'll see him on Saturday. But let's focus on how well Auburn's played offensively their last 3 games, which is what we've come to expect out of them with so many good shooting or perimeter shooters on this team, and the pace that they play. You expect to see them playing really good offensive basketball. It hasn't always happened this year, Drew. Tempo's been there. The efficiency really hasn't, but the last 3 contests against Mississippi State, Missouri, and Alabama, the Auburn Tigers have shot 53%, 48%, and 52% from the floor. When they're putting up those kinds of numbers, shooting-wise, they're going to be real good. 2 of the last 3 games, they've been over 50% from beyond the arc against Mississippi State and Alabama, which is really encouraging for this team. And I think they're just in a spurt right now where they're becoming real cohesive. Perhaps the reason why this line has moved to -8 as it has, it shows that other guys are viewing Auburn the way that I'm viewing them right now, is just in a zone offensively at this point in time. Of course, Florida has defensive capability to take teams out of offensive zones for sure. And it's always interesting to see if Bruce Pearl can get Michael White to speed up a little bit. When Michael White first came to Florida, he was an up-tempo coach, but since I would say the last year and a half at UF, maybe even a full 2 years, he's kind of taken tempo down. But it doesn't always, to me, it seems to be a little bit situational with this team. You look on the road this year, and they've played rather low-scoring games, some of that due to the opponents that they've played. I don't know that it's necessarily a case where they were able to stop teams that want to run from running. But it's going to be an interesting contrast here tonight. Auburn at home, 7-4 over the total. Florida on the road, 1-4. Over the total, 4-1 to the under. So whoever can impose their will. Right now, I would venture to say Auburn would be the team to be able to impose their will because they're playing so well. And let's not forget that Florida, for the most part, dependent upon guard play as well. So it's hard to tell guards that when the opportunity exists to pull back and slow down, especially scoring guards. So we'll see how this Auburn-Florida game goes. I just think right now that Auburn's in a real good zone. Florida is not. We've seen teams snap out of it quickly. Conference play, I know the term is often used in SEC football that teams cannibalize each other. In this SEC basketball conference, Drew, the same can be said for what these teams have to go through, the gauntlet that they have to play. Bruce Pearl was complaining about having to play 3 games in 6 days, and then he finally got a couple of days rest leading up to this one. So we'll see. Florida comes off a game where they just played Kentucky, one of the best defensive teams, if not the best defensive team in the SEC, and they could do nothing against them. Auburn's not that type of defensive team. We'll see if their offensive numbers get better here.
Yeah, with Auburn, you bring up the fact that they are playing better, but it kind of worries me a little bit, Robbie, because it's Missouri and Alabama. I don't think either of those teams are very good. I doubt either of them makes the tournament. Whereas Florida's got a shot, a top 10 defensive efficiency team. Their upside is a little higher than the last two. Before that, I mean, they lost to Kentucky. I'm talking about Auburn here, losing to Kentucky, South Carolina, and Mississippi State all in a row. South Carolina's not very good at all, in my opinion. So coming into this game, I love Auburn at home. I mean, one of the more underrated things in college basketball, something I need to take advantage of more, I think everybody does, is that home field advantage for Auburn. I'm looking at Ken Pom right here. He's got it at 61st in Division I. He's off on that. There isn't 60 home courts better than Auburn. I was just reading Teddy's free play up at sportsmemo.com. You can check that out as well. Teddy says it's one of the best in the country, and I'm with him. And it's not only because of Bruce Pearl. 4 or 5 years ago, they used to have a terrible run-down home court. It was just like a gymnasium built in the 70s, and then they put a new on-campus little stadium basketball arena, and it's awesome, Rob. It's a great atmosphere. The band's playing. I mean, you can drink in certain parts of the in certain sections in there. It's loud. It's a tough place to play, and it's something that I don't think the betting markets have fully gotten in tune to. So heck, maybe tonight we see it. It's just when you look at Auburn's schedule, who have they beat, Robbie? The best team that they've beat is who? Washington, and that was in November. How much do you put into that?
Yeah, I think that, and again, we said it prior here, Drew, that Auburn offensively was really not consistent or good until these last 3 games. Now, I know a lot of coaches will tell you, seasons are long, sometimes, and you wouldn't expect Auburn to have cohesion problems with the veteran-laden group that they have. You would just expect that when the season starts, hey, this is a team returning a lot of guys. These guys can score. We're a year older. We're a year wiser. We're going to roll. And it didn't really happen for them. But the last 3, I would say that, when you go over Alabama's resume, I might rate them a little bit higher than the way you rate them. Not extremely higher, but I think they're probably Avery Johnson's got a little bit better team. And Mississippi State, of course, with Ben Howland has 5 guys back, all 5 starters from last year. So the fact that they shot real well against those 2, to me, an indication. Now, again, it's the Alabama game is a different breed, right? When they play Alabama, there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of focus, a lot of energy. I think they'll bring it here tonight again against Florida. We'll see. One thing I want to mention about Florida real quick, Drew, and for guys that maybe, and sometimes we speak over the top of beginning handicappers, guys that may be listening, people that may be listening to the show to get some, some advice where, they're not as well schooled in how to look at these games or how to handicap them. I would just point out this about Florida. The last 3 teams that they played that were kind of flimsy defensively and liked to score offensively, Ole Miss was 76-76 at the end of regulation, 152. Texas A&M, game goes 81-72, 153. And Mississippi State, 71-68, 139. Those 3 teams, those 3 totals all are higher than what's expected here tonight against Auburn. So my view of Michael White and the Florida Gators is that, yes, the defensive numbers look nice, but I see them pushed when tempo gets increased or when teams want to run a little more. Florida sort of gets caught up in that track meet, and I think it's due to the guards. I really do. So Auburn, a team that will try and push them, and on their home floor, maybe they can influence the pace here. And if they shoot it the way they've shot it the last 3 games, Drew, then it could be tough for Florida to keep up. However, again, when you handicap these games, you always go back and forth with contradictory arguments internally before you come to a conclusion. But I think that Auburn, nowhere near the defensive team that Kentucky was, Florida's last opponent. So Florida might be happy to see the Auburn defense as well.
Robbie, we got one more game on the slate. And guys, make sure to check out sportsmemo.com for $2 Tuesday. Teddy's 5% big ticket discounted to just $2, normally $30. So huge savings there at sportsmemo.com. Also, the podcast coupon code ROBHALF at checkout gives you any and all of Robbie Veno's college basketball card tonight for just half off. You can get one play, you can get 5 plays, any of them half off using the coupon code ROBHALF at checkout. Let's give a get-back game of sorts analysis, Robbie. 643-644 San Diego State at New Mexico. Looks like 2.5 the Aztecs laying on the road. 150 the total. How are you looking to bet this degenerate special, Robbie?
Yeah, this is it's kind of a theme when we pick these games here today, Drew, of either teams in cold spells or teams on hot streaks. And right now, to me, San Diego State, a team on a hot streak. Head coach Brian Dutcher has his team playing as well, especially against the spread-wise. They're 6-2. Their last 8 in the Mountain West Conference, 4-1 over the last 5. So the spread results have been real good for SD State, which has kind of been a forgotten team inside the Mountain West this year, with the performance of Nevada, which gains all the attention, with the performance of Utah State, who has been very, very good this year, to an extent, the performance of Fresno State, which has easily been the third best team in this conference all season long. So SD State in the midst of a pretty good run now. Defensively, turned it up a notch against the last couple of opponents. However, I would caution Air Force and San Jose State, not necessarily offensive juggernauts. So New Mexico will be a different thing. And when you talk about gyms that become difficult to play in, the Pit has a history of being difficult. Let's not forget that the Pit in Albuquerque is the place where no less than about 2.5 weeks ago, UNM absolutely destroyed Nevada, giving them their only loss of the season. So they're capable. But I find some things when you watch New Mexico, Drew, some things that are a little conflicting here. And I don't know that this team actually knows what it is right now. Paul Weir, the head coach of this team, historically loves to play fast basketball, up and down the floor basketball. However, due to an injury to start the season to what was supposed to be their starting point guard, and then some results early on, they kind of went to a zone defense and tried to slow things down. They also got Carlton Bragg, their center, back into the lineup. So I guess he figured that zone would be a little bit better with a big man at the rim. And their results are, ever since then, have really been staggered. Some nights they're good offensively. Some nights they're miserable offensively. They're kind of a hard team to trust or figure at this point in time. I think that they lack a true point guard on that team, which hurts them. They can shoot the basketball, but if you watch them enough, you kind of realize that Anthony Mathis, when he's been pressured this year, turns the ball over a little bit. So San Diego State might employ some pressure. I think you're going to see a quick game here. 150 for a total would indicate that you're going to see some tempo. I think San Diego State's far more comfortable playing fast than they are slow. So New Mexico won't shy away from that. But again, I just don't know that New Mexico has a real identity. It makes them kind of flaky, to use a gambling term, kind of a flaky team at this point in time. Hard to figure, but bettors have flocked to the San Diego State side in this game. I think it opened pick. Last I looked before we came on, they were up to 2.5 favorites on the road. So certainly either guys following the recent San Diego State hot streak or not trusting New Mexico. I don't know which it is. I think for me, maybe over 150 might be a decent look here. But you have to make that play, you have to believe that New Mexico is going to come with their A game shooting wise. And they may just be able to do that because there's been a lot of criticism from local media all season long that San Diego State just isn't about defense anymore. They're only about offense. It's actually ignited a couple of back and forths between Brian Dutcher, the head coach, and local writers. So I think the writers are correct on this, though, after watching San Diego State enough. They're not the defensive team that they were under the previous regime. So we'll see how this one goes. Late night degenerate special. Maybe you can bank on a lot of points.
All right, Robbie. And guys, remember the coupon code for the podcast, ROBHALF, at checkout for half off any of his plays today. He's got 5 of them. You can get 1, you can get all 5 for half off using the coupon code ROBHALF. Also, it's $2 Tuesday. Teddy's 5% big ticket play discounted to just $2. For Rob Veno, I'm Drew Martin. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow with a soccer betting podcast. So stay tuned, guys.